Hey, I want to talk about the Syria situation, that is the the debates and impending votes in the British Parliament for potential airstrikes to Syria. I'll just show you the screen. That's the Labour MP. Sorry, it's a little bit blurred, but that's the Labour MP Diane Abbott being interviewed by the BBC's Ben Bradshaw for her view. She is opposed to airstrikes, but that's, she's always been left of the party, so that's not really surprising. Um, there is a risk that I'll come across as quite fickle in this video because it somewhat contradicts the last video I made. I'm not going to delete the last video because I want this to demonstrate how complex this is. And I think my indecisiveness on the issue reflects many people. I don't envy the job that MPs have today. It's a very difficult decision they have to make. And I wouldn't like to be in their shoes because for citizens, we can have opinions on it, but we don't really have power to make a difference. MPs do. So their vote in less than 3 hours will determine that. It's at 10 o'clock. It's now half 7. Um, I think it's going to go in favour of the government. I think that will give the green light, I should say, for airstrikes to go ahead. Now, I've heard compelling arguments on both sides. In the last video, I said I was swayed towards being opposed to airstrikes. Well, now I'm swayed towards being for airstrikes. That's why I said I run the risk of sounding fickle. But the truth is, I've heard compelling arguments on both sides, and I'm utterly undecided. Um, I think both sides have tough questions to answer in terms of their position. And when I'm talking about both sides, I'm talking about not just MPs, but those who are vocally representing one side or the other. Now, the Stop the War coalition are on the streets, of course, predictably. There's a few hundred of them. That absolutely is, dwarfed by the scale of protest against the Iraq War. To me, that demonstrates not necessarily apathy, but the fact that this is not as divisive as the Iraq War was. I think most people recognize that something has to be done about ISIS. Um, I think there needs to be tough questions answered. I saw a chart earlier from Channel 4 showing the comparisons between Saudi Arabia and Daesh, and the wafer thin. The differences are wafer thin. In Saudi Arabia, you can smoke. That's about the only difference. In Raqqa, you can't. In Raqqa, apparently, some women can drive. In Saudi Arabia, they can't. But otherwise, it's essentially the same thing. Just bear with me a second. I'm actually taking pictures from the news. This is something I do because it's history. Yeah, so I've heard compelling arguments of both sides, and I'm going to weigh into some of those arguments. First, for Cameron to call everyone who disagrees with him pro-terrorist, I think was pretty disgraceful, very unstatesmanlike, and he should apologise for that. And it's certainly not a way to win an argument, especially given some of the MPs who are opposing his actions are from Northern Ireland, and they certainly know something about terrorism. I think that's a disgraceful thing for Cameron to say. Um, Angus Robertson made a good speech, and so have others against military action. Um, there was one SDLP MP, I forget his name, but he made the point that he's not one of those who believes that not going to Syria will lessen our chances of being attacked. He takes a view, and this is a view I agree with, that we're a target whether we go in or not. Daesh attacked Paris before major French airstrikes were underway. This is an organization that basically sees itself at war with the West. So there's no question about it. We are a target with or without airstrikes. And I think the Stop the War coalition are pretty gullible to think that if we don't go in, then suddenly we'll be safe and there's no threat. That's ridiculous. Um, as for this idea that it's going to kind of martyrize people, and fathers and brothers are going to run the IS if we bomb Syria. I'd point out the fact that a lot of them aren't even Syrians. They are the invaders in Syria. A lot of them are Western jihadists. A lot of them are from other countries. So this idea that they're defending the Syrian homeland is deeply misguided. Um, I think on the government side, they need to address the issue of where these so-called 70,000 moderates are, and they haven't clearly addressed that so far. I also believe that we seriously need to look at some of our allies. Turkey has tough questions to answer in terms of the allegations that Russia has made. I'm not going to say those allegations are true because I don't know. Could well be the case of Russia trying to slander Turkey, but certainly I think Turkey has prioritized its war against the Kurds much, much, much higher than any campaign against ISIS, Daesh. So I do think Turkey has tough questions to answer in terms of its relations with Islamist groups, not just Daesh, but other Islamist groups as well. Um, I've already addressed the point about Russia backing the Assad regime. I don't think that has helped anyone. And I think, right, Russia and its supporters constantly point the finger at the West and say, well, the West has backed ISIS or created ISIS. I would argue Russia's played a role in creating ISIS with its slavish support of the Assad regime. That, in my opinion, has helped Daesh to fill the vacuum of the Syrian civil war. Um, So, in my opinion, both sides have questions to answer. I have no respect for the Stop the War coalition. I think they're hypocrites. I don't believe that they are consistent in their pacifism, because if they were, they would have been on the streets protesting against Daesh, not just over Paris, but for all the massacres in Syria and Iraq. Where were they when hundreds of Yazidi, I think it was 700 Yazidi civilians, men, women, and children were killed? Why were they not protesting against Daesh savagery? Why is it Stop the War coalition only ever protest when it is military action that is potentially going to be undertaken by the British government? So to me, they're hypocrites. They're not consistent at all. In fact, the report's just showing it right now. I'll just put the screen towards us. Well, the reporter now has seen several thousand or several hundred earlier. Just looking at the images, that looks like several hundred to me, but I'm not there. There's no way to tell. It's right that it's covered. We live in a democracy. They have a right to their views. Um, but I do believe that a lot of people in the Stop the War coalition have questions to answer. I do believe their position is inconsistent. Um, and it's somewhere between incredible naivety and, frankly, questionable positions. So my position right now really is indecisive. I don't think a bombing campaign will make much difference, but it turns my stomach, frankly, the idea of doing nothing. And that's something I just cannot accept. Um, if we don't take part in bombing raids, we need to be doing something. And that's something the likes of the Stop the War coalition need to answer as well, because they're vocally opposing this. They're an organisation, they have a responsibility to answer what they would do. I mean, if they're protesting against the government, they have a responsibility to offer an alternative. And so far, I haven't seen that. So the votes in 3 hours will probably, I may make another video after that, but the truth is I'm deeply, deeply undecided about this. As for this issue about civilian casualties from coalition airstrikes, I'm actually yet to see anyone produce tangible evidence that there has been serious civilian casualties from, for example, the French air raids. I'm yet to see anyone actually produce, certainly the Russian air raids caused civilian casualties, but they're bombing in different areas. As to whether the French air raids have caused civilian casualties or not, I don't know. If someone can produce evidence to that effect, then that's something that we need to take seriously. But The point is civilians are going to die either way. This gullible idea that the likes of the Stop the War coalition have, that civilians will be spared if we don't go in, is ridiculous, because ISIS is going to commit their atrocities unabated either way. Well, not either way, actually. Airstrikes could slow them down, I believe. So I really don't know. This is a very, very difficult decision that MPs have to make, and I just hope history decides that they make the right decision, because it looks like the government's going to get its way.